Okay. Sorry about that a second ago, if you were just logged on. Hit the wrong button trying to get the chat up and moving on this program. There we are. All right. Should be moving now. All right, welcome along, everybody. Says that we're streaming here. Morning, Luann. All right, looks like we are. Okay. Hey, Cindy in Detroit. Hey, Octavio. Good morning, everybody. My dolls. Hey, Mom, hey, Katie. Hey, Miles. One of your domains Ember hasn't taken over, huh? Yeah. Hey, Gladys. Hey, everybody. Give this a second or so for everybody to get online. Very interesting story today. I'm going to cover some of what I've been working on the last couple of days. My y'alls. If it's all the same to you, Miles, that's what I'm going to do. Silly kitty. Hey, Eileen, Timothy, Carol, hey, everybody. Welcome along. Give it a second for people to get on while I let Miles do his thing here as well. Before I head out to the grocery store, I'm going to find this light fixture that I put down, moved around, and now where is it? Isn't that the eternal question? Miles. Hey, Janice. Morning all around. My alls. Silly kitty. Yeah. Ember's been running around playing with her mice the last couple of days. She's really into playing fetch lately. Bathroom not quite finished yet. Maybe this weekend. Well, then I watched an episode or so of Shakespeare in Hathaway. Interesting, I've just been to Stratford. But alright. I think I can pause the Benny here and go ahead and get started. That's enough of a jump. Alright, so, working on a story. We're going to do a little quick refresher course. This is a section back behind the Eternal Silence statue at Graceland. And on the right is a very narrow, almost completely unmarked sliver of block graves, single graves. They would have been purchased by people who knew that they weren't going to have a monument, probably didn't want a monument, just very simple options. It was kind of the style of the time to go back to nature, and a lot of it also might be, people who couldn't afford anything else. Now, one issue about this, one story from this section that I covered in the last book, concerns a guy named Henry Harris. In 1867, he had come up to Chicago from North Carolina, likely escaping from slavery, though we don't really know that for sure. But he fled from a fortune-telling parlor that got raided by the police. He wasn't wanted for anything or suspected of anything, but Officer Slayton chased him down and beat him so badly that he died that night. The interment book actually gives brutality of policemen as his cause of death. There was a lot of call at the time to have Slayton removed from the force, though of course he was not. So in the course of research, just looking up somebody else completely, I stumbled onto a story about a similar thing from about 6 months before. 6 months before, at about Washington and Dearborn, there was a safe shop that noticed a couple of their big locks that they were selling went missing. But then they found them hidden under some wood shavings down in the basement. So they called in a couple of detectives. The detectives made a big say of saying out loud where the employees could hear, "We're going to have to remove all of those shavings. They're a fire hazard, so we'll remove those on Monday." If one of the employees had been the burglar, that would have meant for him to go get those locks immediately. The two detectives hid out in the cold basement all night, and in the morning, a janitor, a guy that they knew under the name of John Crittenden, came down and started rooting through the shavings. So they fired at the wall as a warning. He shouted, "Good God," and started running away. Eventually, the detective chased him down. He kept running even after being shot in the thigh and the back. Now, here's one of the things that shocked me the most is the next day, the Chicago Times, when they reported this, Chicago Times normally would never miss an opportunity to say that recently emancipated men were violent and dangerous. In this case, they actually said that they were almost certain that this guy was going to turn out to be innocent. He was down there getting shavings like he did every morning to start the office fires up above. Had perfectly good explanation, though nobody really pushed for the detective to be disciplined in this. But in this case, it was operating within the bounds of his duties. The guy was running away when he'd been ordered not to. By the standards of the day, it wasn't a controversial police shooting. But the Tribune, at the time that about a week later he died, he had been sent back to his home without being arrested. He was given, his friends brought in a different doctor who removed all the bandages and probably messed him up worse. There was, a story at the time that John Crittenden was not his name. John Crittenden was the name of his former enslaver. This should have been a bigger story if that was correct. John J. Crittenden was a senator and governor in Kentucky who, right after Lincoln was elected, introduced a new amendment to the Constitution that would have preserved slavery in the states where it existed and said Congress had no power to change anything about it. Lincoln said, well, that's already the situation. The South didn't really take much notice of it, and also it didn't provide for slavery expanding into new territories, and that was a deal breaker for them, so it didn't really do very much. But I couldn't find anything to confirm whether this guy whose real name was John Atkins could have been one of the people that Crittenden enslaved. There were slave schedules, there was a biography, there was his will. I went through all of this and only found the name of one of the dozen or so people he enslaved, and it wasn't John Atkins. So this led to a question. If this was John Atkins of Kentucky, how did he end up in Chicago in 1866? And could he in fact have been possibly a Civil War vet? Because there are two black Civil War veterans from the 116th USCT, a Kentucky black regiment from the South, that was recruited here. Two of these guys ended up in Chicago and are buried pretty nearby in this same general section. Different block, but same section. Now, among the ranks of the 116th, there is a John Atkins. It's not a perfect match. According to the records, he was enslaved from birth by a woman named Emily V. Morrow, previously Emily Whitaker. I couldn't find a connection between her and John J. Crittenden. Also, he was about a decade older than the person who was shot in Chicago. For such records as we have of him, he joined up with the USCT in July of 1864, was discharged to join the regular army in October of 66, about 2 months before this guy was shot in Chicago. But after that, the records just stop. I can't find anything about him signing up for another unit. I can't find anything about him applying for a pension years later. Nothing. For things like this, for the records to be a little bit off is just not unusual. There's just not really enough to know about this. We do know that the camp was close enough to where Crittenden had been living. Hard to say for sure. But here's the other interesting thing I found out about this is, let me just mention the Henry Harris case. Harris and Atkins are right next to each other. They're connected at the corner here in Block A. Now, there's no records as to who paid for these plots. I looked a lot yesterday, but the records from that particular year, the single lot records are not matching. Things are often a perfect match when we go through records. We can find things that I would confirm that, yes, this John Atkins and that John Atkins were the same. In this one, I can't confirm that, but there's also, reasons to think the discrepancy would be there. There's didn't seem to have applied for a pension or anything, which would imply that he must have died too early to do so. For them to guess that he was the enslaved by a very famous person at the time and not just somebody that nobody else has ever heard of is the kind of thing that might happen. So this is the weirdest thing to me, though. Really, is just that the Chicago Times even said that all signs pointed to him being innocent. They would never miss the opportunity to say that black people were dangerous and violent in the old Chicago Times. So this has been what I have been working on the last couple of days, is trying to piece all of this stuff together. Yesterday I was at 3 different archives. I did the Chicago History, the Chicago Public Library for some microfilm, legal archives for all kinds of cool stuff, though not related to this, and quite a bit at Graceland as well. So lots going on here. This will definitely be in the book. We'll probably just have to have a paragraph or so questioning whether he might have been a Civil War veteran who just never made it onto the records. I was just really, the one that really made me jump out of my seat was looking at the map and seeing just how close he was to Henry Harris. Similar story from about 6 months later. So that's what I've been working on right now. This will probably be on the Patreon next week. This week we are still doing the Diamond Queen story, which I absolutely love. I pulled a lot of her files from the legal archives yesterday. I won't get them for a couple of weeks. Also, the legal archives has now digitized the jail records from 1857 and 58. You still have to go into the legal archives to see it, but I went through, got all the names of people arrested for rioting in the 1857 election riots, looked at the entry for the 2 men who were hanged at that time, found a few women arrested for murder and a few arrested for keeping a lewd house. There tends to be some overlap between the two. Lot of really interesting stuff in there, including a woman named Bridget Jones arrested for larceny. You've heard of Bridget Jones's diary. This was Bridget Jones's larceny. So, all right, everybody, thanks a lot for joining me on all of this stuff. I hope people go and, I'll see some of you tonight at Patty Swanson's lecture. Patty Swanson of Effing Chicago is doing her talk for Chicagoans tonight. All about the myth of how Chicago came to be known as the crime capital, which is a long time and has never been statistically backed up. It's always been just some propaganda. So thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours, telling all of you to stay safe, stay strong, and of course, if you can, do stay spooky, everybody. We'll be back with